Cool. I think it's working. Awesome. Hey everybody, thank you for coming to Show and Tell. For those of you here and online, there's a lovely lineup for you today. And so just as you know, they'll be talking and then we'll have time afterwards for questions. So store them up, pick them up, and thank you for coming. Did it not work? Did I not do it right?
No, I was just turning off the video thumbnail so people join. They're not like covering.
I'm good. I can start.
Yeah.
Sorry, just
No, it's okay. Hi everyone. I'm just DiPonziano. If you don't know me, I'm here on behalf of the Dark Arts. The Dark Arts started about a year ago. It's bringing the dark side of expression into the light. The underground has surfaced. Since November of last year, we've been putting on art shows within kind of a house venue that used to be a halfway house. We bring artists and musicians together, and based on the theme, the artists create artwork based on the music theme that we select. We became legitimate a couple weeks ago. We filled out all legal paperwork. Woo! So now we're starting to get things really rolling with what we're trying to do. So what do we do so far? We do these art shows and festivals 4 times a year. We have one coming up in November. We have solo art shows where we pick different artists and go to different. We just had one at the L Bar, featured solo artist work, and we are all doomed with, which is a monthly event between us, Anthropic Records, Flow the Scene blog, and I'm blanking on the last one, to bring a bunch of art and music together as well. How do you get involved? Artists, you can submit work to any of these shows, whether it be the festivals, for solo art shows, We Are All Doomed, monthly events. We take all kinds of stuff. Mostly it's been paintings and drawings as of yet, but we do take sculptures. There is jewelry. Even photography is showing for the first time in this event as well. So we kind of accept everything as long as it goes with the theme. After every show, we are starting a submission process. You can sign up for an email and you'll be told you'll have a couple weeks to apply. Pretty much you would send in samples of your art that are similar to something you may create, and then you'd have a couple of weeks to create it and submit it again, and then it'll be chosen for the show. Just to go back a second, this all started because 4 people got together and decided that art and music were not getting their share of time together, showing that the two are very much linked, whether it be from album art to logos to t-shirt paraphernalia. So they really wanted to show that link between art and music, and that's how this came about. That's how artists can get involved. If you're a musician, you can perform at our shows. We have it, it's called the Shrek Shed. It's the halfway house that we have it at. It's under the L on Front Street, bit past the L Bar, kind of towards where Alex lives. You also submit the same way artists do. You submit samples of music. The great thing about these shows is we're starting to put local artists with a name. Musicians, local musicians with a name. This show coming up, we have Paul Romano showing, who has his own exhibit down on Arch at the moment, and he called us up and said, I like what you're doing, can I show in your show? And we were really sure. The last show we had a band from France and a band from Nepal playing. So we're pulling in some people just from word of mouth without much marketing done. So we like the fact that we're able to bring local and names and people from all over together and show on the same stage, and not showing preference based on how well known you are. So it gives people who are just starting out a way to kind of get their work out there. We're going to start taking volunteers. There's another way. So if you're not an artist musician, there's still ways to get involved. These are the 2 dogs that tend to be at our shows. This one on the left here is the house dog, and he ate our money after our second show. Fun starting out to keep the money away from the dog. We're going to come up with different things for volunteers, but essentially if you volunteer, you help out with the show, you get in the show for free, because the shows you do have to pay for, so you do have to pay out the bands and stuff at the end. So we will have more about volunteer opportunities as the shows grow and more shows start to happen. We're definitely going to need help because we're only a team of 5, so we can't be everywhere all the time. Coming soon, there's a lot. So we have a website and a blog, music blog, that's going to be coming up soon, music and art blog. If you wish to write for it, we don't accept writers. We will not have an editorial budget right away, but we hope to have one at some point. You'll be able to online register for the event, subscribe to our event calendar. The online bazaar is where we're going to offer free stores for artists, musicians, or whoever would find it useful, jewelry makers, to sell their work through our site. We will offer site maintenance, advertise for it, write blog articles about you and your work, send it out in our newsletters, and really promote your stuff and sell through the store. All you have to do is post a picture and your price and ship it when it's sold. We do the rest of the work. We'll have patronage for people who aren't artists and musicians, people that just want to come to the show. Oh, Alex, why are you calling? Fine. So with the patronage, you'll be able to spend like a one-time fee and get discounts to the more expensive shows, free entrance to the smaller shows. We're still working on what that model will be, but they're hoping to launch it in January 2017. We're going to get more creatives involved. I mean, right now it's been artists and musicians. We hope to get performers and writers and anyone else that wants to get involved. This upcoming show in November, we have 3 writers actually that will be reading their poetry in between the band sets. So we have writers involved this time. So like I said, there's a lot of creative stuff going on with the themes of our shows, and we're hoping that more people get involved as we continue to grow. A couple more ideas that we're hoping to do is discounts for the art community. We're hoping to work with businesses once we have everything set up to be able to provide discounts for art supplies, framing, hoping to give our community a way to keep doing what they're doing. And then there's been ideas thrown around about a commission board. If people want artwork done, find a way to connect people with the artists that we have in our community to give them the kind of art they want. Our next show is November 12th. It's coming up soon. It's a black metal show at the Shred Shed on Front Street. The art reception starts at 5, which is free, so if you just want to come and check out the artwork, you can come right on in. All the art is for sale, and there's also a bunch of merchandise for sale as well. The music show starts at 7. That is about a $10 donation to help us offset the bands. Like I said, we're featuring 3 writers this time. The event ends at 11, and food and drink is available at the show. Usually our food is provided from some local food truck guy or some guy making, his own thing. It's usually really, really good. Stay in touch with us. Our website, like I said, is not entirely up yet. So we have Facebook, Instagram, or you can sign up for our email newsletter to get the latest news. And the best way, it's how we expanded over the last year, is Facebook. We have over 700 people in our Facebook group right now. But that's kind of it. I think that's it. That's my last one. Yeah, that's my last one. So that's the dark arts, bringing the dark side of expression into the light, putting on art shows, and bringing the art and music community together, and letting people see it and share it. Thank you. Questions? All make sense?
How did you get started? How many, there was 5 of you.
Originally it was 4 people, 2 artists and 2 musicians that kind of got together and said, hey, there's all this, no credit given to artists with music, and they were kind of talking, they could talk to it better than I can, so it's not there for its initial creation, but they really wanted to bring focus on the art and music scene and how they work together, give credit to the artists that, put all the visuals to music together. And then it just kind of grew from there, and as people kept showing up, the shows got bigger and bigger. Our last show, I think we had over 100 people come by. So it's just based on conversations we have with people and all, and they are the art community. They've been part of it ever since we're all from UArts days in college. I kind of joined on because they're artists. Making a business is not their thing, but they know that but we all see that there's a community that can use this kind of environment to really, show their work and get out there, and you can make money doing art. The show in November will mark a year. Our first show was in November last year.
Oh yeah, so this is like a year.
It's a year.
Show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So themes or talk about dark art, but like, are we just doing like anything with music and art? Or like what kind of genres?
I mean, in our last couple shows, we've had like a grindcore theme. The next show in February is a power metal theme, and this one's black metal. So it's been very of that dark type of genre of music. I don't know how they're going to continue to expand as the shows start to stack up the numbers. But I'm not the one that decides that. So the music team, based on what kind of bands they can get and all some of the themes. But I know the next show in February is a power metal fantasy-based theme. That's what artists will be able to design to. But that'll come out after black metal for submission. Anyone else?
Oh, wait. I think, yeah. How far in advance do you know, like, what themes are going to be and, like, who's going to be displaying the art?
The art we decide usually about a month before the show, so the artists all have a month to make whatever they want to show in the show. Some people use, like, work they already have, but some people like to create new work, so then they show us previous work to give us an idea of what their style is and what their skill level is. And I don't know exactly everything that goes into it because I'm not an artist. The two artists on the team kind of go through everything and decide on the art that they want to put out. But yeah,
Cool.
usually we try to do it. We're still getting our system down because we're still new at it. But after the show, within like a week or two, we want to announce submission and then give people a couple of weeks to get it together, and then we'll pick people and then they can start making their stuff. Anyone else? Cool. Thanks, guys. Now, how do I get off of here? The Alice button.
Hi, everyone.
Oh.
I think you just stop sharing your screen. Or maybe I start sharing my screen.
Well, mine stops.
When it's up.
Oh,
What are you
there's-
trying to do?
Well, how do you make it just one screen? How did you do that before?
I think you just share your screen, and then once someone's sharing, then it turns off the extra.
automatic.
Kathy,
Yeah.
thanks for the shout out.
So it just fills it in when there's no one sharing.
Cool. Awesome.
Am I next, or I didn't know?
Now you are.
Side note, if anyone wants to come play with kittens, I got 3 of them and they're driving me crazy. Please come by and save me. It's my first day out of the house in 4 days.
Oh my gosh.
Also for speakers, when folks are asking questions, it's a little hard to hear on the mic, so just repeat the question.
Okay. Wait. Well, I'll try. Let's see. All right. So we're going to talk about YouTube today, which we're basically going to kind of generally talk about YouTube. I have a video that shows you how to set up a brand page. If you're interested in that, I can walk you through that piece at the end. Keynote doesn't let you go ahead, and I don't want to make you watch me type slowly, and I didn't speed it up because it was confusing. So a little bit about me. I used to work for all of these crazy people and make crazy shows for them.
Wait, make it nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Family Face Off. There were segues all over the office with that one. That was fun. Yeah, so this is my profile on IMDb. It's Sarah Rhodes, spelled without an H and with my maiden name. So I completely changed my name so no one can find me, you know, incognito. I worked on Bridezilla's. Oh my gosh, that show. The things that mothers of the bride did at the bachelorette party, I can't. I made my coworker watch it, and she was mad at me for months. She's like, I can't get out of my head. Yeah, it was kind of, yeah. It was an interesting time. VHS tapes are still a thing. So I would regularly have to go and like take those up into like Calabasas at like 9 p.m. so that the producer could watch the tape. Like you couldn't like compress it and put it on the internet. That was not a thing. So the reason I show you all of this is because we've come a really long way. In the last few years now, instead of like having to work at Fox and make shitty reality TV, and cuss, is that okay? Okay. And make shitty reality TV. You can make your own stuff, and you can make it as whatever it is that it excites you in life, you can share that on YouTube. And that is a positive thing. Like people act like, oh, now we're gonna have to watch all this crappy YouTube stuff. Like, I don't want to see Jane make mac and cheese, but maybe Jane has 5 friends that do want to see her make mac and cheese, and what do you care? Don't watch Jane's channel. So yeah, obviously most of the videos that come up on Any Hall Art are cats. And there's also Nuri Nummy's Jelly Brains. I love Nuri Nummy. She's amazing. She is one of the richest YouTubers. $2.1 million mostly from Wilson sponsorships. If you actually want to make money on YouTube, that's a completely different conversation. We can have that. It's kind of fascinating. So YouTube is a community of creators who use channels to share what they love and don't with the world. There's also, you can make hate videos. You can schedule your video releases. A lot of people don't know that now they've added scheduling, which means you can make like 4 videos for the month, take like 3 days, get everything set to upload, and then walk away, and then you don't have this pressure of I have to get a video out every week. I tend to like to look at it as you have long-term content and short-term content. So you have the stuff that takes you longer to produce and is better for sharing. It's a little easier for people to break down, like what I did with Saul's artist profile, a little more in depth. Then you also have the stuff that you just shoot, like the time lapse we did of the move. Like you have the things that seem kind of superfluous. They both get about the same views, actually. But if you fill your channel with both elements, it's gonna be more enjoyable and increase your audience, and it's less stressful for you because you can just reuse your long-term content over and over and over again. You can set up a brand page. So if you have a company, pretty much any company, if you have a company or if you're an artist and you don't necessarily want to do it under your own name, you can set up a brand page. This is what we did for Indie Hall Arts. So I'm a manager of Indie Hall Arts, but Sean is also a manager of Indie Hall Arts. So it's not only on me. If he wants to put something up, he can totally do that, and I don't have to be involved at all. What matters on YouTube? Okay. The cool thing about YouTube is it's a community, and the second thing about YouTube is the community. So YouTube can promote your stuff to more people for you, but to do that, they like to make money. So if you want to monetize your videos whenever possible, you can choose whether or not you have ads. I haven't done solid stuff because we're figuring out AdWords, but you can have an ad pop up here, you can have a video ad pop up before it, you can have ads on the side. You can choose what versions of your ads you have, but it's good to have something, even if it's just on the side, because YouTube will promote your stuff more readily. The other thing is you want to get people to watch it to the end. So if you offer like a coupon code for your event coming up, if you do some kind of like special announcement or something that's at the end of the video that gets people to watch it all the way through, YouTube will promote you more readily because the side ads are showing that entire time and people are more likely to click if they see the same thing. Shareable content. So Saul, I did an artist mini doc for Saul, and I have footage to do a few more. It was really interesting because I didn't expect the response to Saul's doc, but also people used it instead of interviewing him to write their pieces about his upcoming show. They took quotes from the interview that I did with Saul and they used it in their piece, and it was actually a really good piece, and it promoted Saul on the show, and it saved him the time of having to do that. So if you have a company that does press releases or launches or has a CEO or someone having an interview online related to what they do, it could be valuable. It could make it easier if people want that information. Number of subscribers matters, but you know, it's funny because we only have 3 subscribers on the Indie Hall Arts channel, and we still get a lot of play on stuff. So subscribers matters in terms of what free stuff YouTube will give you. Like if you have 10,000 subscribers, you can go to New York and use their Red cameras for free. Those are like $50,000 cameras. And they get classes and stuff based on the number of subscribers you have. But in terms of like actually getting your content shared, they're not as critical as you would think. So I'm kind of more about content than tools. Content is hard if you don't plan it out or if you are scared that it's like a test. So you're going to have stuff that's successful and you're going to have stuff that's less successful, and it's not really a reflection on your ability to do good work. It's just a reflection on where you're at in the learning curve or whether or not something is going to hit with people. So if it doesn't hit, don't take that as like, I can't do this or it's not worth it. YouTube is a great place to practice a lot. You can always delete your videos. I delete my videos a lot, actually, usually because I find errors. It's easy enough you can get music from SoundCloud or ask people like Rob and Mike Reynolds, and there are people that create music all the time that don't mind sharing it. Just be nice to them, offer them free stuff, make sure you give them credit. Always give credit. Please give credit. If you edit to the music, it can make it feel more intentional. Meaning like have certain things cut, have your cuts hit at the same beat every time potentially. Always add credits. So I always put credits on my videos. It kind of makes me look old school. Not everybody does this, but the reason I do it is because if someone rips that off or puts that on their own website, if my credits are only down here in the description, they don't go with it. So then it's harder for someone to rip something that the credit is actually in the video. They have to actually bother to cut it out to do that. I don't really care so much if people rip my stuff. I just want to make sure if I have art musicians or other people who are in my video, they're getting the credit they deserve. I like to start and end with a little bit of black. So because it takes your eye a second to catch the change, and it makes it easier to have a smoother, the less startling start and stuff. And also, I worked with VHS tapes for a long time. So maybe that's really bad advice, and I just did anyway. Take the time to shape frames. So when you edit anything, even if it's just like a quick 30-second clip, just kind of, so when I edit, I go into this like meditative state. I zone on it a little bit, and you just have to kind of feel it and take the time to just edge stuff just a little bit, because how tight it is going to make a huge difference. And when you do YouTube, make sure you watch it 2 or 3 times on YouTube, because it stops and starts in a different way sometimes based on the way you have your ads set up. So you want to make sure that you're seeing it in the format. The other thing I found is that YouTube kills sound levels. Like the voice will be fine, but the music in the background just drops completely out if you're not careful. So it's hard because like when I'm editing it, I keep wanting to like turn it down because it feels really loud, but then I put on YouTube and it's nothing. Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's kind of a hard thing. Like I have to remind myself to go and like knock it a couple of dBs. Tools, it doesn't really matter until it does. You can actually edit things directly on YouTube now. You can add titles. You can add annotations, which can be linked to other videos. The cool thing about annotations is you can change them. So you can add an annotation for something that you might later, like might be temporary, like the date for Saul's show. And then later I can go and delete the annotation without losing my views, which is kind of critical, because if you deleted the video and re-uploaded it, you lose all your views, and then you lose your boost in the YouTube. Camera doesn't matter. It kind of, I mean, it just depends on what you want to shoot. You can shoot most YouTube videos with an iPhone, and it's fine. There are 4K YouTube videos. I have really strong opinions about 4K. You can ask me about that later. So why should you do a channel? There's a lot of different reasons about why you may or may not want to do a YouTube channel. I'm kind of addicted to doing YouTube channels. In fact, YouTube won't let me make any more new brand pages for next until next year. They're like, you've maxed out your phone. I think that YouTube is a really great way to kind of refine what your message is to people. It makes it easy for you to share your message repeatedly and have it be consistent. So if you're a company that does web development, you could do videos about web tutorials or why you do design in this way and that. I did like a really short series of design in 5 minutes or less, and I have like 5 subscribers just from that. And I haven't done anything on that 10 months because I'm like that. But I think that YouTube is this amazing place where anyone can have a voice. And I see that as a positive. Like Seth Godin talks a lot about how in advertising, we're not in like 15 minutes of fame. It's like 15 seconds. Like the reality is everyone is going to go in and out of these like fame cycles where they're more prominent. And that's just kind of the nature of what social media is and the way that we have this open platform on the internet. And the more voices there are, the more diversity we're going to have, the more experience we're going to have, and the better it's going to make each of us at what we create by having your voice out there. And because you're awesome. all things. Yeah, and we call Arts and Shemaya on YouTube. I also help Neely with her channel, but she makes all the creative decisions. So, and yes, it is 3 underscores because I thought that'd be easier to remember. Sorry. Any questions?
Do you want to take the screen share off so we can see?
Read us how long 10 frames is.
How long 10 frames is?
Yeah.
1/3 a second. So well, it depends on how many frames per second you have. If you want to make it like film-like, you can do 24 frames per second. Most DSLRs are capable of that. Video is like anywhere from 29.97 to 30 frames per second, depending on what you use. I usually do 29.97 just because it's kind of what most television is, and a lot of what I'm doing is kind of replicating that feel. If I was doing film, I'd do 24. Yes.
If I had an ad blocker on Chrome and
I'm not
watching,
surprised. If that was the thing.
hypothetically, we're gonna have an ad blocker, and I were to watch a video on YouTube, does YouTube still register me as having watched an ad and still reimburse the person who's hosting the video?
I don't know. It probably would depend on how the ad blocker works
Okay.
and whether or not YouTube logs that information. It's very possible that it doesn't work that way. I mean, monetization, I think I've made like 50 cents. I haven't even made enough to catch out. It's not, monetization is more about what it does for YouTube than necessarily what it does. Unless you have like a huge, like you've got 500,000 subscribers, monetization doesn't really become a critical form of payment for the artist.
Okay.
So a lot of YouTubers that you're like, oh my gosh, Evan Chu makes $1 million a year and he's 8 years old, which is true. He makes his money off of sponsorships from Mattel. So a lot of the ways that people make money as YouTubers is they do good content, they get subscribers. Then they get companies that are interested in their types of subscribers, and then those companies give them money to like open up the next Lego set or open up the next Barbie doll or do the Shopkins University, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my kids watch a ton of YouTube. Like, my 8-year-old is better at YouTube than I am. It's kind of crazy watching how she does stuff. But yeah, so it's not like you're robbing them of money. Necessarily. You might be robbing them of promotion if YouTube does track that. Did anyone want to see the process on how to do a brand page? Or are we out of time? We're out of time.
Do you have another question?
Yeah.
You can just like smack me, Sam, like with that. I get in the zone and I'm not thinking.
But will you stop the screen share?
Yeah, I am. I'm into that. I can't find my
I
mouse.
can't do it.
I don't know where my mouse went. My computer ate my mouse.
I read.
There we go.
I have a question about tools.
Yeah.
So YouTube has its own editor, but it's a website, guys. It's probably terrible. What do you use?
Little laggy.
Why?
Okay, so I use Final Cut right now to do most of my client work. I like Final Cut because it can set up multiple channels. And it's $300. My favorite editor ever would be Avid Composer, but that's probably just because I spent hours and hours every night in it. You can use iMovie if you're just getting started out. iMovie works pretty well. ScreenFlow also, if you're doing a lot of screen share, ScreenFlow's editing is perfectly capable for most things. Yeah, that's what Neely uses.
Not Adobe Premiere? Are you not into it, or?
I haven't used Adobe Premiere. Okay, so when I started working in TV, my boss was like, if I see Adobe Premiere listed on the skill set, I won't look at the resume. So it kind of has this like negative connotation in my head. But we're getting a gaming PC, and that's probably how I'm going to be editing with Neely, is using Adobe Premiere.
I mean, I think it behaves almost exactly like Final Cut.
It's
'cause I've
very
used
similar.
both. Yeah.
And he said the same thing about Final Cut, but I'd already used Final Cut, so in my mind I knew it worked. Total bias. Premiere is pretty good. A lot of people, most editors in the industry now edit on all three. Final Cut, Premiere, and Avid. So it's more about what you want to accomplish and what makes you throw your laptop across the room fewer times.
Fewer times.
Fewer times. It will happen. Make sure you let the pillows in your
So other things we're learning about Zoom is that when you face towards the screen, it gets a little harder for our remote folks to hear.
Sorry.
No worries.
Did I cut out a
I
lot?
can say it.
on that?
Well,
Speaking of
I
that,
like
so you gotta get some little
Okay.
like wireless microphones that go into computers and phones.
It kind of looks like the mic from
is this
They're not
recorded?
that
Singing in the
expensive, I don't
Rain.
believe
It
it.
is recording, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we are going to share screen, right? Got that?
We gotta chat.
You share the desktop.
It starts to feel like
This one?
catacombs when you're trying to set something up. You're like, wait,
There we go.
how did I end up
I have a page, but I don't think I ever posted anything, so about it.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna, those go.
I think it's more about
Alright.
cumulative though.
Kind of like a blog a little.
Well,
I
that's
just
about, right? Alright.
So,
Sans.
So I was asking Sam, like, what am I going to talk about? And she said, well, I don't know anything about you, so why don't you tell about sort of your journey? So that's what I'm going to do. And I've been thinking about that because my college reunion, 15 years, is coming up next year. And most of the people who I've known, who I haven't seen in a couple of years, are not going to recognize my life, right? So what happened was, come on, go forward. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, not then, but then, my business partners and I, we decided we were going to get real serious about the future of our business, right? In a way that we just hadn't been before. The business had been around since about 94, and we were going to hire some people and get real strategic about our vision for the future. And not just like 2014, but like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, like long-term future. So we brought in, what you always do in this situation, we brought in a forward button. Oops, there we go. We brought in consultants, right? I mean, these were good-looking consultants, the kind of high-dollar consultants that you're like, I don't know what they do, but I like being around them. And they coached us. We went to retreats in like expensive places and helped us like refine our vision and get it to like a real, elevator pitch future kind of thing, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our old company, Live Factor, and we were going to get rid of it and replace it with our new company, and we were all going to be happy, right? Except then something happened kind of along the way. Here we go. We realized we had been consultants into the vision, right? We had these visions, and we had gotten by for the first 20 years of the company, back, because I joined the company as an intern. Like, my first job was fixing the copy machine, right? And eventually I was part of it, right? So we all had these visions that we had kind of worked on, which were just entirely incompatible. So the consultants did a very good job of helping us define what we wanted the company to be, and what we determined is that's not going to work. But we're grown-ups, and so we said, okay, well, let's act like grown-ups here. And I essentially just sold my chunk of the company back to them and said, I'm going to go and set out on my own and do something else, right? But at this point in life, my resume has 2 items on it, right? It has this company where I went from fixing the copier to partner, and then I had my previous gig at McDonald's where I went from burgers to fries, which is a major upgrade because the fry machine really dangerous, like in the wrong hands. So I got out of there, and I didn't know what to do because part of our agreement was that I would generally kind of agree to leave the industry for a while, right? Because I'd been the young guy in the future of the company for a long time, so let's get him out of here. And I was kind of burned out on the industry. So what do you do in that case? In my case, what I decided to do was start drinking heavily. Now, my background is in what we now call behavioral science. But back then, it wasn't really called that. It was just a mishmash of social sciences, economics, and decision theory, and political science, and social psychology, and stuff. But now we put it under the rubric of behavioral science. And that's what I've done. I've done behavioral finance, industrial analysis, stuff like that. So what came very naturally to me while I was sitting in my bar was to pull out my phone and bring up the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, right? Because that's what I do for fun. And they do something really nice on their website. They organize all of the industries in the country alphabetically, and they give them a little number, right? So I just started at the top of the list. Here's the list, right? And I was like, what industry do I want to figure out that I can go into? And the first one was like accommodation, but I don't like strangers. And then the second one was accommodation in food service. Well, I don't like strangers, and I told you about my first food service career, and that wasn't real good. Administrative and support services, nah, that's just not my personality. Waste management, oh God, really? Agriculture, forestry, and fishing. Funny story, I own a cow farm in Alabama. That's where I grew up. I was there on Monday, but I didn't want to get more into that. I've done plenty of it. Air transportation, I've got astigmatism, can't get a pilot's license. Ambulatory healthcare services, nah. Amusement, gambling, and recreation. I'm not going to make my hobbies my profession. That's always bad business. Animal production, I already got the cows. Apparel manufacturing. Other funny story, I started an underwear company for men about 7 years ago. Fashion is a really hot, it was called Strong John's. Great company. Yeah, loved it. But fashion's a real hard business. So I got nice licks in there. Let's not do that one. Okay, so then we're at the end of A's, arts, entertainment, and recreation. So and each one of these, like all of these industries, I sat down and I have index cards and I just like write down what's a business that I can do in this industry if I think about it. So this is the one for the company Pirouette, the art leasing platform that we're working on. I'm not really going to talk about the company, but yeah, I've got a whole stack of them on my desk. And this one originally came out as like a CSA, but for art. So why was this? What's interesting about the art world from a not an art world person's point of view? You're just studying it kind of from a green eye shades person who, Bureau of Labor Statistics, big glass of whiskey for many, many days, and that's how you approach the world. Well, I will share with you some of my observations. Really proud of this one. Comic Sans observations. Flag's killing me. Made my day. All right, so brief overview. The U.S. art market comes in at about, and they guesstimate because it's a very poor data flow market, $27 billion a year in transactions. I guess the global art market somewhere between $60–70 billion a year. But when I look at it, my first analysis is that market is too small, probably by half. All right, my guess is, oops, come on. Yeah, there we go. Too small. My guess is that that market in a more sort of laissez-faire, less, I'd say, structurally restricted world would be about twice the size. And there are some clues where you would see that, like, if you were an industrial organization type of person, there are clues that tell you that there's stuff going on in this market. So about half of the market is controlled by the auction houses. There's two of them. They control 96% of the auctions. They each have 2 events a year that each last about 4 hours, right? So there's $13 billion there. This year, the art market was down about 10% because there just weren't enough high-priced pieces, we're talking $100 million pieces, that came to market. There's a shortage of those globally. So you have a very narrow base, but a very, very, very high peak of that pyramid. So that's generally a clue that it is not, I would call it a free and functional market. So 3 observations and why I think this market is constrained. Number one, as a structure, as a rule, we unteach art in this country. Right, so there's this illustrator, Ryan Woodward. He has a great article on his blog, which is if you have artistic kids, right? He said, and this is like a little excerpt from his report card as a 4th grader, attitude problems now. Ryan pays too much attention to drawing and playing around and misses a lot of learning time. Any help at home would be appreciated. So the art world has, and Brene Brown, who's a motion researcher at University of Houston, love her very much, she talks about generally 100% participation as artists when we're 6. And around 4th grade, you stop. They call that the creative cliff. Right? the amount of change in people's perceptions and participation in the art world falls off dramatically between 3rd and 5th grade. Right? It's kind of like, oh yeah, this was it, her book. You should watch this. When she started her research on shame 13 years prior, she found that 85% of the thousands of people she'd interviewed can point to a specific moment in their educational life that forever changed how they view themselves as learners. And half of that 85% had to do with the creative spaces. Art class, band class, right? So if you were a marketing professional and like your market participation rate started at 100% and it went to here, I'd fire you. That is bad structure. Second constraint, we tax art more than we tax just about anything else. Structurally, it's not good. In the IRS's view, go on. All art is a collectible. That means there is functionally no difference between a Picasso and a Pokemon, right? That means some real specific technical things. It means that art is subject to a 28% capital gains rate, not the long-term 10 or 15% long-term capital gains rate. It means that the definition of possession is indelibly linked with the concept of ownership, which we don't do for any other assets out there except collectibles. We only allow for valuation purposes the concept of comparable sale, which is difficult in a thinly traded, perhaps monopolistic market. Right? You can't use discounted cash flow, which is pretty normal. You wouldn't want to use cost of creation, but whatever. And businesses cannot depreciate art. They can depreciate pretty much any other asset. In fact, you might have heard of this guy who made a lot of tax benefits depreciating his building. You depreciate a building on 40 years, you sell it to your buddy who sells you the building for 40 years, you get to start the clock over again. Lots of fun things you can do with assets that aren't called art. And the last thing, and this is where my company comes in, the art world is a very strange one in that we play for keeps. Right? I have not encountered a world before where the learning curve, first off, you've already been kneecapped in the 4th grade to not like it. And then the learning curve's real steep. Right? If you don't know the technical vocabulary, then it can feel real intimidating. I've only bought art in a gallery one time, and I guarantee you I was the prime, this guy should be buying art demographic. And I was trying to impress a girl, and it didn't really work. Right? All I really learned is buying art to impress a girl was kind of lame and pathetic. Right? And when I say we play for keeps, here's what I mean. If we were to think conceptually about an industry along 2 dimensions, on the left dimension, right, on the y-axis, the number of places that cater to, on the bottom, on the x, different levels of consumer engagement with. So all of us are engaged with different products to a different degree, right? From ignorant to addict, right? And so I kind of call these, let's see what I have. You might be a wanderer, a sightseer, a tourist, a visitor, an expat, a resident, a local, a regular, a connoisseur, a hobbyist, an amateur, professional, a collector, an obsessive, or a hoarder. If you're on this end of the spectrum, where the big purple things showing up, there's a lot of places you can go. There's sightseer, there's public art, there's museums. These are designed for really quick, kind of shallow, just passing through experiences. And the proof of that is, I guess about half of us have been to a museum in another city more recently than we've been to the PMA. Unless you were bringing somebody to the PMA because they were visiting from out of town, right? So there's a huge repository of art which is creating this kind of shallow drive-by experience. This is just nothing like the sort of ancient Epicureans and aestheticists, philosophers said you should do to experience art. But on the other end of the spectrum, where this green blob is, if you're an obsessive hoarder, professional collector, you've got a whole world of auctions and galleries. And they cater to you. As a rule of thumb, if you want to find the most successful art gallery in a city, find the one, go to their open night, first Friday or whatever, every town's got them. Find the one with the least foot traffic. Financially, will usually always be the most successful. Because the problem with galleries is I need to keep people out. The transaction is so difficult. It's so emotionally difficult. It requires so much hand-holding. It requires such a specialized set of knowledge that you can't have window shoppers come in your store and waste your time. So the reason why they're unfriendly, that's not an accident. That's by design. In the art industry, they call, cute girl who's at art school at the front, they tend to refer to them as either gallatrixes or gallerinas. And in many galleries, they're not supposed to talk about the art. They're going to say, wait a minute, let me go get the gallerist who can talk you through it. These are barriers to entry that are erected so that if you're going to walk through those doors and stand there and feel awkward about yourself, you're going to walk out having spent some money. So I think that there's probably this gap in the middle that if there was something there, there'd be more people playing around in the art world. And that's what we're going to try and do. So that's kind of my thing. Yeah. So I think the art world is weird, but I'm going to work on it for a little while. And next time we'll do this in papyrus. All right.
Can you turn off your screen share so we can see everybody?
Yep. Look at this. Here. There you go.
Yay.
Henry's face.
You would have waited till this is over.
Well, I mean, conversation.
Yes.
Well, my question for Sean is, how do we tax this?
I'm not good at that.
We'll stop recording for a minute.
Well, we treat it as sales tax.
Okay.
It's if you walk into a store, you pay. It's what we treat.
I mean, this space could be considered actually being in the business of art as opposed to just being in the enjoyment of art. So there's whole certifications, and like if you're an investor versus a collector, investors get preferential treatment. So in pretty much any other field, when you buy something, you can add the costs to your cost basis, unless you're a collector. But if you're an art investor, which is a very reasonably difficult test to prove, then you do get to add your expenses up to your basis. It's weird. The Picasso and Pokemon thing, I'm not making lights. That's literally the same thing.
We try to, I think the arts is in that middle gap, in the space where it's an experience. You don't go out to put on a show or something. You go out to put on an experience. Enjoy something else. Right. Enjoy people's company, but also have this stimulus near you.
It's also a bit in the business of creating new potential collectors, not necessarily like the professional collector sense, but in the sense of, I think if you look at our roster of people who have bought art here, a piece of art they bought here may have been the first piece of original art they've ever bought.
And it's an amazing experience for people.
It's incredible, right? Yeah, I think that's, and knowing that we're in the business of not just moving a piece of art from our walls to somebody else's, but to begin that process is super interesting. So this is all very resonant to a lot of the stuff that we've seen and talked about. Just like I think you've taken a much wider view of a lot of stuff we've talked about. So it's just super interesting.
I mean, it does get down to like the individual experience. So the first piece of rental art that we delivered, which happened about a month ago, we delivered it to some friends of mine. They both have PhDs from Harvard. So these are like people who have been around kind of the elite circles of the planet, right? And it was like $100 a month, like a $5,000 piece. But and you know, I carried the piece there because we're at that stage where I'm schlepping everything. And you know, they're unboxing and taking out the sleeve. And Susan, the lady who's the guy's wife, she's shaking. She's shaking in this process. It's a very emotional process because they've never done this before and didn't think that they could be people that had art in their house. Like, how many tickets do you have to get punched before you give yourself permission? I still don't know, but I don't think I'm allowed. So there's a cultural gap there that I think we need to close.
I think we're doing it. I'm starting something where, I mean, I see a lot of companies do it, you know, too, is that they're showing you what it looked like in your house before you buy it. So Photoshop is, you know, entering a photo. But Photoshop it on for you, and I'm doing it too, to kind of help
you visualize.
Help you get over that. Because you don't know.
Right.
People that aren't creative can't picture.
Yeah.
So now you can see it. It's almost guaranteed to sell there too. Because, oh yeah, that's a taste.
Like, what a super weird experience going into a gallery and drinking bad wine and comparing outfits and then making a major dollar purchase. Like, who does that? All right.
Thank you so much.
One of the
So thank you everyone for coming to show and tell. Folks online, thank you so much for all your feedback on what was working and what didn't work. And please give us more. It's very, very helpful. And we'll do this again next month. It's every third Thursday. If you feel super inspired and you're like, oh my gosh, I have a thing to talk about, then let's talk. We'll book you. And have a great rest of your day.
Just that.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, we'll usually do it.
Tonight's close.
I'm going to stop recording before you.
Oh.